Hello, everyone. Are we ready to start? Okay, I guess before we start, we found these glasses. Do they belong to anyone? No? Okay, it's going to be here.
Yeah.
And if someone wants to, okay. All right, so we would like to welcome you to the final session of this event. A joint event of Gearing Roles and Gender Smart, two sister projects focused on the promotion of gender equality in academia and research. So these sister projects, through mutual help and support and sharing community practices and results, manage to echo their messages to wider audiences. The focus of this special event is on the European Year of Youth, with title Become a Gender Equality Insider. And hearing the experiences and insights from our distinguished guests, we're going to start with the first discussion. But first, we would like to welcome María Silvestre, coordinator of Gearing Roles from University of Deusto, for her welcoming remarks. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My warm welcome to this joint conference organized by the two European projects, Gender Smart and Gearing Roles. I think that the organization of this joint event has been a good practice and a good idea, even if it has also given us a lot of more work. It is necessary and enriching to generate meetings, collaboration, frameworks, synergies that allow us to get to know each other and that favor exchange and mutual growth. I believe that this joint conference is a clear example of this. We agreed that the theme of the conference should be about the involvement of young people in gender equality and the impact of new digital technologies in these processes. In order to achieve true and effective gender equality, it is important to open up the debate to everyone, to reach out to the younger population in order to listen to them, to make them aware of the indicators of inequality, to involve them and empower them in the fight for equality and for the construction of a fairer society. Social and communication networks are a key instrument in the socialization, relationships, communication, and learning of the new generations. New technologies have many positive elements and potential uses to work for equality, but they also reproduce gender biases and participate in gender cyberviolence. We will talk about all this in this joint conference. I'm very grateful to the speakers and panelists for their participation. I thank you for attending, and especially thank the people who have been at the forefront of organizing this event for their work. We have spent 2 days surrounded by dinosaurs and extinct species, and we represent what is alive, what is current, what is imperative to move towards more egalitarian and fair societies. May the history of an evaluation of men, as it says at the entrance of the museum, be the history and evolution of humanity. We will see each other on the road to equality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria, for these opening remarks, opening words. Now, we move on to the roundtable discussion on the topic of youth and gender equality in the digital age for an inclusive, equal, and creative future. So the aim of this roundtable is to reflect on how gender, race, and sexual orientation and different axes intersect with the use of digital technologies, and to explore the possibilities that digital tools offer for youth participation with a view to overcome inequalities and to ensure more equal and inclusive spaces. I would like to call the panelists for this discussion. Please come to the stage, and as you are coming, I will also say a few words of who they are. First, we have Manon D., Policy Officer from the European Youth Forum. We will have with us Charlotte Weyenberg, Master's Student in Economic Sciences at the University of Ghent and President at the Academics for Development. We also have Panayota Polikarpou, Gender Specialist and Project Manager of Gender Smart at CAT. We have Estibaliz Linares, Researcher at the University of Deusto. Aisling Moloi, Advisor at Tagask, and Fulia Kama Ozelkan, PhD candidate on Gender Studies at Sabanci University. I hope that I pronounced your names correctly, because this was very difficult for me. The discussion will be moderated by Aysé Gül Aldine, which is a professor of anthropology and gender studies at Sabanci University and partner at Gearing Rolls. So, thank you.
So, hello everyone. It's, for some of us, the end of 2 long days of brainstorming and sharing with one another the amazing experiences we have accumulated. So this is a great harvest of sorts. And it's wonderful to be sharing this harvest with a group of young people who are doing amazing work in their own contexts. And I will start with reading you how the year 2022, which has been declared the European Year of Youth, is introduced on the European Union website. There's a website dedicated to this. It says, "Make your voice heard. 2022 is the European Year of Youth, shining a light on the importance of European youth to build a better future, greener, more inclusive, and digital." So this joint roundtable by Gearing Rolls and Gender Smart will build on this imaginary of a greener and more inclusive future with some reservation about the digital. So no doubt, digital technologies offer significant potentials for empowerment, for creativity, organizing, and networking, but at the same time, they embody the risk of perpetuating existing forms of discrimination, marginalization, and violence, as well as creating new ones. So how to make sure that the digital is indeed a safe, enabling, equal, inclusive, even nourishing space that fosters creativity, empowerment, dignity, and solidarity is an important challenge for us all. And the best actors to guide us in the face of this challenge are, of course, the youth, which is why we're having this joint roundtable. So it's a privilege for me to be facilitating this diverse roundtable of speakers who are doing fantastic work as youth, on youth, with youth. So they will be shining a light on how this better future, greener and more inclusive, is being imagined and co-created today. And that's how we would like to start this roundtable, with a focus on today. So we'll have 2 rounds of questions to make it a dynamic conversation. And I'll start with the first question, reflecting on the title. So the title of the panel is Youth and Gender Equality in the Digital Age for an Inclusive, Equal, and Creative Future. What we mean by gender equality is, of course, gender plus equality, where class, race, ethnicity, age, origin, and other axes of equality are seen as integral to gender equality. So we can spend hours discussing the challenges and obstacles on this path to gender plus equality, or hours on the future that we imagine as inclusive, equal, and creative. There's usually a stark contrast between the grim reality of inequality, violence, and discrimination in the past and in the present moment that we're all dealing with, and the inclusive, equal, creative futures we envisage. So how about the better stories of the present moment? In the context of youth and gender plus equality, where do we see inclusion, equality, and creativity finding concrete and inspiring expressions today, either in the digital space or offline? Where do you see the harvest of your own work or the work of others in your field? And that's the first question that I will be posing the panelists. Whether this is a tiny, seemingly trivial harvest or a large-scale one, can you give at least one example of youth-led or youth-focused better story of gender plus equality today, online or offline, or both? And as you answer this question, I would also like you to say a few words about yourself so that everyone knows where you're coming from And so we will start with Manon D, who will be reflecting on her work in the European Youth Forum.
Yes. Hi everyone, I hope you can hear me well. Thank you very much for the invitation and for this great event. So my name is Manon D. I'm a policy officer at the European Youth Forum, where I work more on social and economic inclusion. I don't know if you know the Youth Forum, but we're a member organization. I'm based in Brussels, but we have members all over Europe. So the national youth councils, you usually have one in your country, and also some bigger international NGOs, like the youth sections of political parties, for example, and these sort of organizations that are part of the membership. I think I have two examples maybe for that answer. Well, the first one would be, as the Youth Forum, we've been developing our work on digitalization because we've seen it's becoming more and more of a topic. As you were saying, there's lots of challenges, lots of obstacles, but it's also lots of opportunities. So we want to make sure that we, as young people, as young policymakers, are involved in this development. And when you look at the EU, there's so many things happening. We want to be included as young people in it. So we do have a position paper, which is about making digitalization work for young people. And I think it's been very inspiring to see all our members kind of come together behind this work, both in the development of it and then the implementation of it. And, in the years to come, I hope we'll see really young people at the forefront of that work. On a more perhaps personal level, on the example you were asking about, gender equality and the links with digital, I think I've seen so many great women, great activists being able to actually use the internet as a great tool for mobilization. Being French, for example, there's been a few super important campaigns on Uber, for example, and because there were a string of sexual harassment and sexual abuse because done by Uber drivers, and we had one young woman using her Instagram account, that was a meme account, to mobilize so many, hundreds and thousands of people to the point of actually meeting with the representatives of Uber and meeting with the government. And that was really kind of significative of the tool that can be internet for change. Or you see some young women, even young high schoolers, actually, once again, sorry, a French example, but they were actually suffering from challenges from the internet. So during the lockdown and during the coronavirus, there were some young men that were sharing private pictures of those women, of those young girls, and they gathered together through internet, and they got mobilized together, and they got activated together, and they created an association, are working with a lawyer to really help other young women that are victims and survivors of this violence, and to the point that they actually wrote a book about it and how to mobilize together. So I think that's really showing us how, despite all the obstacles that we can encounter on the internet and especially social media, it can be also a great tool of activation and of mobilization for better gender equality. So that would be the examples that I would bring to discussion for now.
So much, Manon, and really both really inspiring examples. Is that Stop Fisher? Yes. We listened to them in as part of another project with CIRAD about creating digital safe spaces, and they were really inspiring. So we'll continue with Aisling Malloy.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So my name is Aisling Malloy, and I'm from Ireland, and I work for Teagasc, which is an agricultural advisory, education and research institute in Ireland. I grew up in a suckler beef farm myself, we've tillage as well, and my dad and I now run that at home. Back in 2016, I completed my master's thesis, and it was on how Teagasc Advisory Service specifically could improve engagement with and empowerment of farm women in Ireland. Since then, I've worked as a dry stock advisor, and I'm now working as a technical advisor on the Future Beef programme. And this consists of a network of 22 suckler beef farmers around Ireland. They're demonstration farmers, and they're using technologies to improve their financial, environmental and social sustainability, with the aim of promoting this uptake among other farmers in the country as well. So in Ireland in 2020, over 75,000 women actually worked on farms. And this comprised just under 27% of the agricultural workforce. However, only slightly over 18,000 or 13.4% of these are sole owners. And I'm not sure if anybody saw the graph that Helena had up earlier, but we're quite bottom of the EU, unfortunately, in that respect. So the research that I carried out, it focused around the farm women in County Wexford, and for the purposes of the research, a farm woman was defined as any woman working and or living on a farm. I surveyed 233 women of all age groups, and I held focus groups with farm women and advisors as well. Interestingly, almost a quarter of the respondents that came back categorised themselves as not working on a farm, but when we actually delved into the data, almost 64% of these actually carried out one or more tasks. And to me, that really highlighted the lack of recognition by women themselves for their contribution to their own home farms. Just briefly from the research, the main barriers that the women in the study felt prevented them from engaging with advisory services was firstly the sense that they're not taken as seriously as males, and this was linked to a lack of self-confidence and their sense that her role might be in the home rather than on the farm, which I found to be quite sad. Secondly, the sense that women are not welcome in many agricultural groups, and this was actually mentioned in one of the earlier presentations, and it mightn't be that they're deliberately excluded, but they're not actually actively encouraged to participate either. And the third highest barrier was a lack of self-confidence, and this was linked to a lack of knowledge as well. So one of the recommendations that arose from my research was to pilot female discussion groups. Now, the research is quite mixed on these in terms of pros and cons, but the overall aim should be to build the confidence level of women so that with the overall aim that they can be merged into mixed gender groups eventually. So back in 2016 in Ireland, there was a movement of women in farming groups nationally, and branches were set up in the 4 provinces of Ireland. So these groups met every 4 to 6 weeks, and they had a specified topic or more than one topic at each meeting, which is actually picked by the women themselves. And I was personally involved with the South East Women in Farming group. I found it to be extremely, like today, inspiring, educational, and a fantastic networking opportunity with other like-minded people. And I say like-minded people because men actually came to some of these groups as well, and they were, of course, most welcome. But after about 1 to 2 years, due to other commitments, the group's founders had moved on, and less of these meetings were held. However, back in 2021, a Women in Agriculture stakeholder group was actually set up by a young farmer, Hannah Quinn Mulligan. And this included members from the original groups, along with other representatives from other agricultural organisations. It's a voluntary group, and I'm delighted to say that they successfully campaigned for the first ever common agricultural policy supports for female farmers in Ireland. And again, Elena referenced this earlier on. So due to their engagement with the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, there will be 60% funded farm investment grants for named female farmers, so to be named on the herd number, between the ages of 40 to 66, and with a minimum of a level 6 agricultural qualification. And previously, this would have only been 40% grants, so this is a huge step forward. There'll also be the option to establish funded agricultural knowledge transfer groups for women in 2023. And again, this is a huge opportunity to build women's confidence, and again has the long-term aim of merging these groups into kind of more traditional male-dominated groups. Another focus, again referred to by Elena just before lunch, for CAP 2023 to 2027 is to increase the amount of data or improve the recording and collection of the data more so, of gender data across all CAP schemes, as it's quite limited in agriculture in Ireland at the minute. The Women in Agriculture Stakeholders Group, overall, their aim is to increase the amount of women who are named on herd numbers from our 13% to 25% by 2030. And to me, this would be a huge step forward in Irish agriculture going forward.
I think there was a lot. Maybe in the second round, we'll hear more about what you have to say on how to move forward incorporating farm women into this conversation. And what we can learn from your research and their work. So, Charlotte Weinberg, would you like to share with us what example you have about how this work is being harvested?
Of course. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me. I'm Charlotte Weinberg. I'm a master's student of economics at the University of Ghent here in Belgium. And besides that, I'm also the president of Academics for Development in Ghent. And this organization, the student organization, wants to promote social entrepreneurship among students. And we do this via events to learn more about this concept, to hear testimonies and so on. But most importantly, something that we are very proud of, we offer students the opportunity to really get a hands-on experience and work with local partners in the Global South on a project to create a social impact.
And I myself was also a project student last year, so I want to talk about my experience as the answer on the question. So I went to Uganda, to Kasese, and I worked with a project partner that offers skill training to women that have been marginalized by life circumstances, such as teen pregnancies, domestic abuse, extreme poverty, being an orphan, and so on. And besides this skill training, we implemented two things. So first of all, we implemented microfinancing institutions, which is a savings and credit circle, which is very helpful actually, since these women are excluded, are rejected from classic financial channels, which makes that they cannot access a starting capital in order to set up their own business. And by saving together with this group of women and eventually also being able to take out a loan, they will be able to get access to the starting capital, really invested in themselves, invested in a business, and this way grow as a person and as a community. And secondly, we also implemented the skill of reusable sanitary pads. And this one sounds trivial, but is actually so important when working concerning gender equality. Since sanitary pads are obviously very much needed, but they are so expensive, and this high cost, really creates a lot of limitations for women, since it limits them to go to school, to go to work, to really pursue their dreams, and take care of themselves and their family. So by providing the skill to really make these reusable sanitary pads, and also for them being able to also learn it in their community, we think that we provided them a lot of freedom. This also is a small progress in a more equal, more gender equal world and more gender equal community. And I also want to mention that this year we also offer a project in Uganda also concerning digital inclusion and financial inclusion. So I want to mention this since it shows that it is still so important that we work on this, on these topics, on these projects with young people, really in collaboration, since we were a young group of women working with a community of young local women. We were collaborating, we had a lot of conversations, we talked about challenges, about difficulties, and so on. It was really a enriching experience to talk with them, to really have this cultural interchange, and I think that we together with the community really had a successful project, and I hope that it has a positive and long-lasting social impact.
We'll continue with Panayota Policarpou, who is, of course, a part of Gender Smarts. We had the chance to listen to her this morning, and now we'll listen more about her youth-focused work. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Can you hear me? Yeah, perfect. So, of course, again, my name is Panayota Policarpou. I'm the project manager of Gender Smart at the Cyprus University of Technology. In addition, a person with great interest on social enterprises that create impact related to equality, diversity, and inclusion. I'm also the co-founder of such initiative in Cyprus that focuses on creating awareness about gender equality issues, but also promoting STEM and STEAM careers to teenage girls. For me, the example I wanted to give focuses more on the workplace and the culture we promote in workplaces. We see in the latest research that young people are far more interested about inclusive day-to-day practices in an organization. And of course, policies and code of conduct and campaigns are important. But when it comes to our day-to-day interactions, we have limited knowledge and understanding of what we can do to be inclusive. And this might be not interrupting someone in a meeting. And this might be scheduling a meeting in a time where everyone has to be with their families or whatever. So these actions we've seen in the latest years in Europe created a pool of campaigns, therefore using digital tools such as social media. So young people and younger future employees share what do they expect from the workplace. I wanted to give an example, but it was mentioned before. So we see that companies need every single person, of course, knowledge and skills and overall input. But employees won't bring all of these unless there is a trusting relationship between the employer and the employee. Therefore, the work related to leading with empathy and the allyship known term, for me, is what is mostly fascinating work that has been harvesting the last years. Therefore, I try to keep it short for now. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And we'll hear more in the second round of this fascinating work. So we'll continue with Esti Linares from the University of Deusto.
Bueno, firstly, thank you for the invitation. And bueno, it's true, my accent is from Spain, moreover, from the north of the Spain, because the receptionist, when he has asked me, "You are Spain?" "Yes, I'm from Spain." So sorry because my accent. And also, it's true that for me it's a big and hard step to be here. Firstly, there are my partners here. Also, here is my boss. So for me, it's hardest to be here. Only because when we are speaking about here, and we are speaking here like women, and we are doing like that type of spaces, we put like our best face, no? And there are in our background, there are other types of emotions and feelings, and I think it's good to say how we are. And also we are speaking about empowerment, and we are speaking also about the leadership, and for me now is a moment that for me is so powerful. Now, yes, I'm of a University of Deusto, but also I work with adolescents apart from the university. I have work like moreover 10 years like with adolescents, and yesterday I was working with them. And yesterday and also this morning I was thinking about what I'm going to say, what I'm going to explain, and how I can answer so much questions, because there are lots of questions and in very few minutes. And now I was thinking, yes, I have you have very, very, very good example that just happened yesterday. Yesterday, there was one girl, more or less, she is 12 years old, and she has suffered sexual abuse and also gender violence. But she has a powerful discourse in the classroom. She was speaking about gender identities, she was speaking about other type of discourses, she was speaking about things like, for me, with 12 years old, it wasn't impossible to think about that. Also in the same class, it was another boy, and he answered me that he has a fragility of masculinity. And he was like, "Do you know what is fragility of masculinity?" And he told me, "Yes, because I am, because I know what is that." So, but in the same way, in the same class, there were violence, there were risks, there were cyber violence, because they suffer cyber violence. So they are living in a very, 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 very contradictory world. They are also living in a very vulnerable world. But that contradictory and also vulnerable world, we have created the adults. So we are focused on adolescents, also in children, but also we have to speak about what adults we have done right now. And in another way, also when we are speaking about the gender, the digital world, what's happening in the digital world, the digital world, how I see is a big mirror of the humanity for bad part and for good part. Like, for example, an example is one of my partners that have come, and how the TikTokers, YouTubers are speaking about gender identities, they are speaking about equality, they are speaking about racism, they are speaking about other types of discrimination, but also is in the same way we can also cyber violence. We can also see how our, for example, partners, feminist partners, they are suffering by cyber violence. But it's our mirror. The online and offline life is the same. What's happening in the online world, the thing is like it's connect very, so we have a connection, a world connection, and we are creating networks that are totally connected between them. So it's that the problem, that it's, when we have a problem, it's high problem, it's that the problem, but the problem is the same. And also, I think when we are speaking also, and we are focused on adolescents, the adolescents have very contradictory world, because they are seeing, they are thinking, they are living other world that is so contrary, because we are saying, okay, you can have whatever the identity that you want, but in another way, you have gender violence, you have racism, you have other types of discriminations. And to engage that and to affront that is so difficult. And we are speaking that they are 12, 13 years old. So what can I do, or what can we do with that problems? We have the mechanisms and I think the responsibility to create programs, to create other type of spaces to work, to speak about that. I think is that the way that we have to work, and also this type of space, I think is an incredible space to speak about, and really to create programs that create other types of digital spaces, but also offline spaces, because it's not only problem related with the digital world. It's a problem that is a structural problem.
Great, thank you so much, Esti. So last but not least, we'll be hearing Fulya Kamen Özalkan, who also works on violence, online and offline, so exactly taking on from where you stopped. What is your better story, Fulya, that you would like to share?
Hello, everyone. It's really a privilege to be here and hearing all these inspiring stories, which connects, actually. I'm a PhD student, as mentioned, at Sabancı University Gender Studies program, and my work focuses on and offline feminist activist practices, with a particular focus on Me Too movement and the struggle against gender-based violence in Turkey. The better story today that I want to share is the story of an independent feminist solidarity network called Speak Up to End, Susma Bitsin in Turkish. And it's a platform organized in the field of cinema and television and theater, working towards ending every form of gender-based violence, actually. And it's one of the solid outcomes of Turkey's Me Too movement, and continues to have an effective role in the struggle against sexual harassment, both online and offline spheres, and in the field of cultural production as well. The platform was highly inspired by the courage of two young women, a young actress named Eritishcan and a 19-year-old costume assistant working in a TV series, when they disclosed their stories of sexual violence publicly through social media. Certainly the awareness and awakening brought by Me Too movement has affected their speak outs, and the platform felt, in their words, the need to felt being pushed by the back to take a position in the recent speak outs. And around 2018, the platform was established. What is the better story about this platform for me is actually, aside from being organized on feminist principles such as collective decision-making, being survivor-centered, having non-hierarchical structure, this platform actually has turned into a feminist solidarity network with the participation of more than 300 members, which is huge considering the sector. And these women are working and studying in the field, and they are harnessing the power of online and offline feminist activism to achieve gender equality and foster social justice. So they're not only curating hashtags, organizing social media campaigns, organizing press releases, but they're also physically attending the trials of women and forming solidarity groups with other entities. They are utilizing their friendship networks to actually support the survivors. And the platform is welcoming all women and LGBTI+, coming from different ranks of the sector. So it's not only women visible in front of the screen anymore, who are more privileged most of the times, and but also the women behind the scenes, yeah, who are young, inexperienced, and most of the times economically disadvantaged, now know that there is a place, there's a structure, there's a mechanism they can reach if they face with sexual harassment. And actually, the platform is not only supporting the survivors, but it's also welcoming all parties of the sector. So they are collaborating with the unions. They are also forming other solidarity groups with other parties in the sector. So they're forming these bridges. And these bridges actually, these collaborations really are effective in mobilizing the available support mechanisms. And actually it's increases the immediacy and impact of activist practices in the struggle against sexual harassment. So recognizing the efficiency of these solidarity networks and seeing the empowering effect of including all the parties, all the subjects of the field, I think is one of the harvests of my work. And I believe that this is a really powerful tool to push the society and institutions to take action and change for achieving gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fulya. Isn't there a lot of energy and wisdom and a great ethos of solidarity that's really emanating from this table? So now we'll do a second round where I hope that each of you will delve more into the kind of work that you do, and we have prepared specific questions for each person. So again, I will start with Manon. You work on social and economic inclusion of youth and women at the European level. So what advice would you like to give all of us? What are some of the directions that you see as critical in the transformation towards a youth and gender plus inclusive future of politics and policy making? And what's the role of the digital in this transformation, especially in terms of the lives and participation of marginalized young people, marginalized on the basis of class, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and all the other categories that keep them in the margins?
Well, it's a big question. I don't know if I can answer all of it. I think already it's extremely interesting to hear from all of you, and I think hearing the specific examples and the concrete implementation of those projects is always very empowering also in a way, because of course working at the Youth Forum and working in the Secretariat in Brussels, we kind of take a step back and look more at the policies and really the link between the work of our members that is very groundwork and more in the implementation, and the institutions, and how we can kind of bring that voice to the institutions. So that's always really our goal as the European Youth Forum and the work we do here. I think something very important that was noted is that online and offline are not that different. It's a continuum, right? And especially looking at violence, unfortunately, it's violence against women. The violence that exists online is part of this big continuum of violence that exists in, well, real life is not the word, right, in offline. So I think this is always something we need to keep in mind, and we shouldn't treat both things completely separately. There are going to be challenges that are very specific to the online world, but most of the time you have to keep in mind that this is all part kind of the bigger issue together. Delving a bit more in detail in our work, especially on digital, as I was saying, that's something that we're really trying to invest in more and more as the Youth Forum, because we see, of course, the importance of tackling it. Again, the online world can be full of opportunities for young people. It is, bringing people together, and that's extremely important already. You have people, from all over Europe and from all over the world that can come to get together. It's amplifying their voices, it's connecting people. It's also bringing them new opportunities. There are new job opportunities sometimes that come up with digital, but that comes with its own set of challenges. And so what we have been pushing for, again, as the Youth Forum, is that, we sometimes have this thought that young people must be literate digitally, that young people all know how it works, all have the latest equipment, and there's no issue for young people to use the internet. That's not true. For many young people, there are still issues of digital literacy, there are still issues of equipment. We saw it actually during the COVID crisis, right? Because education went online for many, many, many young people. And many of them, especially from marginalized background, especially the rural youth, did not have access even to working internet or to a good computer. And so that leaves many, many young people behind. And so we are, really demanding, more so than asking, the EU institutions and therefore the member states to make sure that young people are educated to digital literacy, that young people are, and everyone in general, of course, are equipped with good quality equipment, with good ICT access. So that seems very basic and trivial, perhaps, but that's really the basis to make sure that then young people can actually benefit from the opportunities that the internet brings. Another thing that we're really asking is, as always, and for all types of policies, for young people to be involved. And when we say involved, it's meaningfully involved. It's not just having like one consultation at some point and say, okay, we've consulted like 10 young people and we're good. It's making sure that young people are involved from the start. So it means the design of the policies, it means then the implementation of it, and even during the monitoring and the evaluation of it, especially regarding online policies and, making sure that issues that might not seem that might not appear to older people, but that are very present for young people, are actually taken into account in this. And so that means also, of course, developing digital skills for young people and all types of new skills that might need to really integrate in the labor market. But that's really the participation of young people within the decision-making processes will make sure that then they can engage in the civic space that the internet really offers them in a way. So that would be really the basics of what we're asking and of how we see that, we need this to make sure that the way the digital space evolves will be positive for young people, that young people can all engage in it and only benefit from opportunities and from the positive aspects and not have to face so many challenges in that. I think I'll leave my colleagues also talk more about the details, maybe on violence and on entrepreneurship and stuff. I'm sure there's like many different aspects and angles we can take to talk about this, and I'm happy to talk again about other things, but I want to keep it short. But that's to give an overview of more the basics that we see as needed for young people in digital space and for the future.
Thank you, Manon. And so we'll move on to Aisling now. Aisling, talking about social, political, and economic inclusion of women and youth, we're privileged to have you as a guide to extend this discussion towards the rural, towards agriculture and farming, and perhaps even non-human animals. I don't know if you want to cover that too. But what insights would you like to offer to this roundtable regarding the engagement and empowerment of farm women and youth? And you've already started talking about that. So what does youth inclusion and gender equality look like in the rural context of agricultural production, which are not always made a part of these conversations? And what role, again, does the digital play in this context, particularly in terms of the empowerment of those who face gender-based discrimination and violence?
Thanks, Aisha. So I suppose from the research that I carried out, recommendations were actually made, as I say, they're kind of specifically for Teagasc Advisory Services to include more farm women in their work. But from listening to speakers and the panelists today, it's actually relevant across the whole agricultural sector, which is it's nice to see in one way, but obviously we've a lot of work to do yet. And again, this links into the sustainability and that we've a lot more to do to join the dots, basically. So the main recommendation was that the agricultural industry, if I was to bring it back to the industry, is to make a more conscious effort to include farm women of all ages. And I've just a couple of quotes as we're going through, just from one advisor as part of the research. They said that the attitude from professionals is important. If they recognise the wives, then the husbands might do so more, and even the women themselves. And I thought that was quite striking. A lot of the advisors, as part of the research, they actually acknowledged themselves that they weren't aware of farm women's needs or any of the barriers that would participate them from engaging with advisory services. And they suggested that if they were more aware of these, they might be more proactive in encouraging farm women to engage with them. Unfortunately, because these needs and barriers are unknown, they're less likely to be considered when programmes or policy changes are being developed because of this. And specifically from the research, the timing of events, and this again was mentioned earlier, was quite important because due to family commitments and, if they're working outside the home as well. Including family members at farming events and meetings, addressing family members in correspondence, such as post or email, and encouraging women to engage with farm parties such as vets, accountants, sales reps, advisors, will all be a way of empowering women. And again, it's helping to increase their interest in the farm as well. And it would also address one of the barriers which was raised in the study, which was the lack of recognition and respect, as they're formally recognised in the farm business by other parties who are coming in on the farm. Gender unconscious or biased training, again, I think this is something that could nearly apply to the wider industry as well, could be provided to representatives that are dealing, for any of us really in our jobs, to make them more aware of how to include both male and female participants in the day-to-day business. And it also helped to raise awareness of the language that they use on a daily basis. It can be quite disempowering to hear a farmer referred to as he the whole time, and a simple change of wording to they is much more gender inclusive. And this was, Emma Fogarty spoke earlier about the gender sensitive language guidelines that were published in Teagasc there recently, and this was a big part of this around the language as well. In regards to engaging and empowering youth, Patricia O'Hara from 1998, she identified that mothers in a household can actually act as a barrier towards female participation in agriculture, because they aim to maximise their daughters' occupational opportunities, because traditionally and unfortunately statistics will show they're unlikely to inherit the farm, and they discourage them from entering farming as a career. But by encouraging these mothers themselves and including them more, it might help them see that times are changing for the better, and they might help to encourage the younger generation towards a career in agriculture. In regards to the youth inclusion and the gender equality in the agricultural production, there's the reality, the ideal, and then how to bridge the gap, which I've kind of just addressed. So the reality, unfortunately, is that there's very slow movement in statistics. There was a 1% increase in the number of women farming in Ireland, from 2010 to 2020, which was not good, and that equated to 756 farmers. However, the number of female farmers under the age of 35 increased by 78.6%, which sounds absolutely fantastic. But unfortunately, again, the stark reality is that they still only make up 6.8% of farmers that are under the age of 35. Plus, the number of female farmers that are over the age of 65 actually increased by 14%. So they're obviously hitting retirement age at that stage. The ideal is that the number of women that own farms would be balanced with the number of men, and that this would be reflected in national statistics across all age groups. That farming and working in the agricultural sector would be seen as an alluring career for both men and women, and that women are recognised for their contributions to their farms on a personal level by other professionals, and again in the national statistics. And ideally, barriers will be directly addressed, and the language and media representations of just he, the male farmer, would be a thing of the past. Definitely agree that digital technologies have a key role to play here, and I see a huge opportunity to develop that gender unconscious bias training as an e-learning module possibly, and it could be mandatory for all staff in an organisation to complete. They could do it at a time that's convenient to them, and it's very easy for organisations to keep track of who's actually participated or not, with the agenda obviously of inspiring change. One of the issues that arose from my focus groups, again quoted from another woman who participated, was that the image of women in farming just does not exist. And I distinctly remember looking for photos of female farmers when I was doing my research, and the best I could find was a photo of pink wellies. There wasn't even a face or a body or anything in them, so that was quite... Thankfully, a lot has changed since then anyway, thanks to events like these and key people in our organisations who prioritise gender balance, and they helped to bring about that change. Social media posts, photographs, videos, online publications, and all digital communication can include gender-balanced language. And our previous panel spoke about the literacy and equipment, so maybe not all youth are digitally competent, I suppose, but an image is particularly powerful as well. To sum up, and just another quote, I'm a big fan of my quotes. Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook, she was speaking about female computer scientists working in a male-dominated profession back in, I think it was 2014. And she said, when we see images of women and girls and men, they often fall into the stereotypes that we're trying to overcome, and you can't be what you can't see.
Great, thank you. we're at some level talking about basic access to resources, to the land, to farm equipment, to money, to digital technologies and literacy, and also about how these are represented and the power of representations. And of course, Charlotte had talked about the significance of having access to feminine hygiene products, for instance, which can be a significant resource to be mobile and for women to do what they would like to do. So Charlotte, maybe we can continue with you. You've been engaged in promoting and social entrepreneurship, as you talked in the first round, among young people, encouraging them to connect across this global South divide, North and South divide, focusing on ecology and social sustainability. So I have two related questions for you. One is personal. How has your experience with your partners in the Global South, particularly in Uganda, shaped you or changed you as a person, as an organizer for equality, or as a social entrepreneur? And of course, the related question to this is, what does inclusion and equality look like in the kinds of exchanges you facilitate across vast inequalities that have been shaped by histories of colonialism and ongoing forms of political, economical hegemony, racism, and whatnot? So what has helped you imagine and enact solidarity, collaboration, and co-creativity in these entrepreneurship projects across these vast historical and structural inequalities as youth from Belgium and Uganda?
Working with the local partners was so enriching. And I saw a lot of hope, a lot of motivation, a lot of innovation. And this was so enriching for me as a person, and it really encouraged me to keep continuing being a part of Academics for Development and keep fighting for what I believe in, for my values, and especially fighting for the world that I envision, a world where equality is key, where inclusion is key, a world without injustice, and where every group of society has the same rights and benefits from things like digitalization and so on. So it really encouraged me, and it also encouraged me to create awareness among peers, among other young people, since this is so important. We as a youth are really the future generations, and we have to collaborate together in order to attain the world that I envision, the world that we envision, to attain a world where equality isn't even a question anymore, or even a subject for an event like this, but it's just so important and so normal in the world that we would attain for. And then for our project students, we obviously want them to be as prepared as possible when they go to the implementation phase. And for this, we offer a lot of guidance and support throughout the year. So first of all, we have quite some workshops organized by companies and people who have a lot of experience with the Global South, with the countries that they're going to, but also with subjects such as how to cope with injustice, inequality, cultural differences, and so on, to really provide them knowledge and food of thought and background information. Also, we provide feedback from a specialized jury. Again, people that are really specialized in the countries that they're going to, in the cultures that they will be working with and in, and also the topics that they're working with. So we provide them feedback in order for them to optimize what they're doing, optimize their ideas. And also we have a coach and Academics for Development, obviously, that guides these project students. But I think the most important thing is inclusion. We work with interdisciplinary teams, which means that we want project students, a team of project students, to really exist out of very different backgrounds, very different persons, different genders, different countries of origin, and so on, to really broaden that view and broaden this mindset. We think that is so important. And also inclusion, collaboration, and conversation with the local community. with the people that they are working with. We believe so much in conversation, as I said before, and going to dialogue and talking about challenges, difficulties, talking about or asking your questions to the communities that you're working with can be so enriching. And all of our projects are really about collaboration with the communities in order to get a solution or a part of a solution that is as sustainable, as long-lasting, and as good as possible, where as many people as possible can benefit from. And so I think that is really the key takeaway, that collaboration is key in order for us to grow as youths, to grow as a world, and to really provide a lot of social impact.
Great, thank you so much. So we'll continue with Panayota. Panayota, you worked passionately about the empowerment of young girls, as nationwide and internationally, promoting gender equality, setting up spaces that encourage women and girls' participation, particularly in the STEAM fields, and you've already started talking about that. I love the subtitle of your book, A Few Words for a Big Change. So could you tell us about this big change? What changes when girls and women are given the opportunity to shine their lights in all realms of life, including in STEAM? How does gender equality transform these fields, in your experience, as well as the lives of the women and girls themselves? And why is it important to mobilize young girls to learn more about technology and digital skills?
Of course. So answering the first part of your question about the big change. So we consider the actions taken for gender equality as leading to big change, as it is indeed proven that when we eliminate any form of bias or discrimination, leads to significant changes that affect so many dimensions of our life, therefore big change. Just to give an example, in the book, with a few words, we're giving advice, we're giving knowledge, we're sharing knowledge, but we're also giving advice for parents or educators. And I will give a specific example. We give some advice on how parents can eliminate any forms of bias or stereotypical advice that they give to their kids when it comes to career advice. And these may have as result how girls, for example, are choosing careers. Therefore, the under or over-representation of a group in a particular field, for example, STEM. Therefore, we believe that those small actions that might seem not really, let's say, huge or that don't take much effort, we do believe that they lead to big change. That's why the subtitle of the book. Now, moving on to the next part of your question, when we see what changes we see when girls are indeed given the opportunities to shine. It is already granted sometimes for men that they are given the opportunities to shine in STEM careers. At least that's what the numbers that we have seen the last 2 days show. So when we see more girls following these careers, it was already mentioned by Anna Gokidis before, we do narrow the gender pay gap and we enhance women's economic security and we ensure a diverse and talented STEM workforce that prevents bias in these fields that they actually define our future, define the future of job, define and design already also an inclusive future. So globally, we see that more men are using internet than girls, so than women and girls. So if we see more girls have access to internet and feel safe to use the internet and navigate online, then they are able to develop also the necessary skills and engage in digital spaces. And of course, that leads to social inclusion. Because we've seen also from papers that the European Youth Forum published last year that feeling safe in a digital environment or having the skills to navigate and use it for your benefit also leads to social inclusion, which is extremely important to highlight. So as a social phenomenon, we see that digitalization may support or hinder the efforts of necessary to achieve, of course, social inclusion. And there have been noticed that significant gaps can be identified among young girls in terms of skills, accessibility, equal opportunities, and types of services allowed and provided. So digital skills indeed empower young people, and particularly girls, and who may have to face stereotypes that connect the likability of tech skills and knowledge with their gender. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Panayota. Really inspiring work. So we'll continue with Esti. I mean, we've already started talking about the significance of safety in the digital world and the widespread experience of online digital violence that impact the youth. So in your experience, what are some of the directions that we need to take or that are already being taken? What inspires you in terms of creating such spaces? And to what extent are the youth themselves actors of such spaces?
Yeah, I'm going to speak about, above all, what's happening in Basque Country. I mean, then maybe here someone or my partners can tell me other types of examples, no? But for example, what's happened in Basque Country is like we have created many types of programs, so different programs, educative programs, but all educative and programs are directed to have technical skills, but not to have emotional and feelings skills. And I speak about behavior, and we are speaking about something that is structural. And moreover, the thing is like, if we are speaking about something that is structural, and like my partners has told, we are speaking also about families, also about teachers, educators. We have to create other type of programs. Why? Because in the other way, we can't change. We can't do that big change. It's so difficult to create that big change in only with adolescents. And also, we are speaking about adolescents. And moreover, now, for example, in Basque Country, they found me in many high schools with a lot of problems of cyber violence. And that cyber violence is creating in children. We are speaking children that they are 8 years old, 7 years old, and above all when we are during the pandemic. But for example, what's happened with the families and the teachers, they are a real big gap, that they haven't got skills to engage that type of problem. So it's so important to create that type of programs and mechanisms, not only thinking in adolescents or young people. We have to speak and we have to create programs that in different ways and different direction. For example, for families, also for teachers, also young and above all children. For me, it's so important when we are speaking about education, we have to speak with just 3 years old. Because now, 3 years old, our children, now they are connecting in the network. They are in the net. They are seeing YouTubers with 3 years old. And if we aren't creating that type of programs and we are creating that type of other views of points, the problem is going to grow up. And I'm seeing, for example, when the families told me with 8 years old and one parent or mother or father, I don't mind, they told me, Esti, my little children is taking me my phone. No, you are giving her or his your phone. That is the problem, not so. I think we have to create other type of programs that involve all people that they are involved in the adolescent. And other ways, I think that they are seeing, they have other alternatives. We are speaking about different alternatives, YouTubers, TikTokers. But the thing is, like, when we are speaking, for example, the cyber violence that they suffer with their body, and for example, yesterday also I have a girl that she hates her body. That process is a long process to love your body and to be well with your body. So sometimes we are speaking about, okay, we are create the body positive movements, and it's great to have that movement in the digital world, but also we need other type of the mechanisms, because in another way, it's something that we are putting so superficial. Really is something that related with our behavior, our codes, and internal codes. And to change that internal codes, we need other type of mechanisms that they create more in deep that we belong to our identity. And also we have, I think, the way, and I don't know how to say good way, but the way that we think is something related with education. And that education has to be so structural, not only focus on adolescents, instead that we have to focus on children, also on educators, and also on families. Because in another way, it's so difficult to change things. And also in the same way, we have to improve other types of techniques that we are speaking about, psychologists, about social workers, about other type of professionals that we have to be in the schools. Creating other type of spaces where we can speak, we can debate about things that they really are in deep, and we are not creating that type of space. For example, in Basque Country, that I think is the way. However, it's true that we have to put a positive view, because in another way everything is wrong. No, we are in the way. But yes, I think we have more discussions, more in-depth discussions, that really it's not only to create a body movement or other type of movement that only is in digital world. We need in offline world other type of mechanisms.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, certainly. The significance of structural mechanisms and movements, and of course this points to the significance of the kinds of projects like gearing roles and gender smart, and as we were talking this morning, moving them forward, investing more in them, while at the same time developing these movements and civil society organizing around solidarity, which Fulya is looking at in her dissertation. So the title of your dissertation is Feminist Activism and Digital Media, the Interplay of Online and Offline Feminist Collective Action in the Turkish Context. So what insights would you like to offer us in terms of feminist practices and politics changing in the digital moment, especially of the Me Too movement and its impact?
Actually, I believe the continuum of online and offline feminist activist practices have definitely changed the way struggle against sexual harassment and gender-based violence in Turkey is the way it's fought against. So due to the awareness created by these campaigns and everything, bridges formed that I have been talking about the Susmabits'in platform, and with the networks established, the organization institutions actually felt the need to take more concrete steps, such as Turkey's Actors and Actresses Union. It calls Actors Union on their website, but I call them Actors and Actresses Union of Turkey. But this union formed a gender unit within their own body, and some drafted or finalized policy documents against sexual harassment. So some solid gains, termination of the contract of the perpetrators after disclosures have taken place. Even sentencing of the perpetrators, not many, but very few, but that's something. So these have all taken place. And one of the significant changes, especially in the cinema and television sector, my interviews told me that the male crew are thinking twice before making sexist jokes on the sets, film sets, and the subjects, the perpetrators are losing sleep actually for being disclosed. This is now the atmosphere on the sets now. So. But I want to focus on one better story of solidarity and activism related to Me Too movement in Turkey. It's a very recent trial that has been concluded 1 month ago, actually. So in this better story of solidarity, the Speak Up to End platform, the platform I have been talking about, and the Actors and Actresses Union of Turkey and other feminist activists actually worked hand in hand and carried out on and offline feminist activism against this case. What was the case about? Actually, 2 players of the Istanbul Municipality Theater were sexually harassed at different times, and they came together and filed a lawsuit, actually, for sexual harassment, and the perpetrator was sentenced to 2.5 years. So the process there was an appeal process, but the decision is finalized on September 20, 2022. So 1 month ago, this is the first public legal win of Me Too movement in Turkey. But I'm not going to talk about this legal win. I will talk about an institutional response to Me Too movement, actually. So 1 year ago, on the day of the trial, when the sentence was finalized, not concluded, but the sentence was given, the perpetrator was about to have a premiere of his solo play at the Istanbul Municipality Theater. And the Speak Up to End platform, Actors and Actresses Union, and individual feminists attended the hearing. But after the sentence was revealed and the news spread all over social media, the platform and individual feminists following the case started sending tweets and mentioning the municipality theater for calling a response. So they were expressing their anger for silence to this case. And after thousands of tweets, the municipality first announced that they postponed the play. And this time, feminists started to tweet, sarcastically asking, is it because the player forgot the lyrics or could not memorize his lines, or these sarcastic messages have flooded the internet? And eventually, after these protests, the municipality announced that they canceled the premiere. But the feminists still insisted on the termination of the contract of the perpetrator. Next day, there was this post on the social media account of the municipality saying that, okay, they canceled all the current projects with the perpetrator, and they took necessary legal action against the situation. So after this, I think this was a really important response. Yes, the municipality was this sort of gender-sensitive municipality, Istanbul Municipality Theater. So compared to Turkey's not gender-enthusiast political will. So it's different than the Turkey's general atmosphere. But this response came. And it came with the pushing of the solidarity networks established between Susmavitz'in platform, Speak Up to End platform, the unions and feminists involved in this struggle. So this was both the online and offline activism carried out together. So can we talk about change? I believe yes. It is slow, but yes. And these young feminists in this field of cultural production actually continue to carefully and creatively utilize the simultaneously promising yet precarious capabilities of social media, if we put it in Mia Fisher's terms. And they use this power to transform offline spaces. And this better story, actually, of solidarity gives me hope. So that's something that I wanted to share with you.
Maybe I'm not speaking to the microphone. Sorry, I was trying to speak to the panelists. So from Turkey and Cyprus on the eastern end to Ireland to the Basque Country to Belgium where we are, and of course some of you do Europe-wide work. We've listened to some really inspiring actions and acts of solidarity and empowerment. So we have a Mentimeter, which we will, do we have it here or? Yeah. now. So we would like all of you to be engaged. We have another 25 minutes dedicated to the discussion, and we would like to start that with a question. Yes? Okay. Okay. Victoria, please. Yes, please do. And those of you who weren't here, Victoria was one of our keynote speakers and has already engaged us in some deep conversation.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question because it's kind of been eating away at me as I've been listening, and I'm sure that we'll do this. I won't take a minute. Something which is troubling me a little bit. First of all, I just want to say that, thank you so much for your interesting and fascinating work. I think it's really, really important. What I'm a little bit concerned about is that if we swapped this panel with the panel which were there yesterday, there isn't a lot of difference. And I want to know that what is actually happening? What are you doing to involve the young women of marginalized groups and for their voices to be heard? Because if we're not careful, you end up being white saviors. And I know you don't intentionally want to do that, but you are young, I'm older, I expect it from people which are a little bit older, but it's about the fact of, well, where's the seat for the people which you're talking about? This doesn't seem to be there, and why not? And I know you'll answer all of these and that, but I just needed to interrupt and be a bit more disruptive because I'm a bit nervous about,
Thank you so much, Victoria, for that. So, if we can do two things, maybe you should respond to that first, and before we move on to the other question. Okay. So maybe we'll do that. We'll all take a moment to reflect on that question that is challenging us to walk our talk, right? Are we really walking our talk? We have been talking about gender plus inclusion and intersectionality. What are the limits of the extent to which we've been able to accomplish that? And so let's reflect on this question. I think there's a code yes, you can see the code at the top. So you can use your digital devices to type in menti.com and then use this code 29832320 to answer this question. So our question to all of you, and including the panelists, is what is your takeaway from this conversation? What was new for you? What surprised you, intrigued you, inspired you, or troubled you? To add Victoria's comment to this. So we'll just take a moment for everyone to write their response.
Listen. I could have been blind, but the love inside of me that doesn't stop me from what we could have been, baby. Tell me you're mine. See, I've waited on love. Tell me if I just wanna love you more, baby. Tell me why. Tell me why. Is my loving not enough? Is my loving not enough? Tell me why. Tell me why. Yeah, I could have been blind, but here you are in front of me, confusing my life. Do you know what you want lately? And tell me you're mine. See, I've waited on love. Tell me if I just wanna love you more, baby. Tell me why. Tell me why. Is my loving not enough?
We need to update it. Right. Maybe we need to resync the Mentimeter for, yeah. Or scroll down. Yes. Okay. Great. So thank you for all these. I see some more people writing. When you enter your comments, they will appear here as well. So I would like to turn to our participants of this roundtable first. What was your takeaway from this conversation, listening to each other? And also, if there's anything you would like to say in response to Victoria's question, that would be great as well. So maybe we'll do the same round and start with Manon.
I can start. I think the main thing, and it might seem basic, but to me it's the solidarity. I always think, being in these panels, these conferences, and the work we do in general, it's always really, really great to hear and to see what's happening everywhere, and how the solidarity between young people and young women is so important and is at the basis of our work in a way, and that's how you get and you keep staying engaged also, I think. And sorry, I got confused in my thoughts. So yeah, I think solidarity, and it's. Oh, sorry, I was going to refer to the Mentimeter, but anyway, all the points that were raised that were really interesting. And thank you also for raising the point more on the inclusion of marginalized voices. I do think at the Youth Forum, for example, I would very much agree that I don't think we're completely doing everything we should. I think we still have a lot of work to do. I think the angle is a bit different in the sense that we ask the Commission, we demand that the Commission and the European institutions, for example, in the work they're doing, think about reaching out to all young people and how you reach out to marginalized young people, because you will look at to take a very concrete example, I work on minimum income, for example, and when you look at the statistics, there are so many young people and people in general that do not take up the minimum income that they have the right to, and it's usually people from more marginalized backgrounds, and it's many times because they don't know about it, because they don't know how to do it. So the reaching out aspect, for example, is very important. But then in terms of including the voices, I think as a membership organization, this is a key question. I do think we're trying, and we have quite a big membership, but yet I don't think we're there yet. And so I really appreciate actually that you raised that point, and I think that's always extremely important to raise it, and we should raise it more ourselves, to be fair. And I just really, that's a commitment that I want to take, and that I hope also as an organization we take, to do better on this, and to always be mindful of this, and to find ways to give the voice directly also to the people from more marginalized backgrounds. That would be the first answer, I think.
Thank you, Manon. Aisling, would you like to continue?
Thanks. Okay, mine will be very short and sweet. I actually didn't put up the Mentimeter because I didn't have my phone with me, so I excluded myself digitally anyway by accident, but anyway. So what I would have said anyway, the takeaway from the conversation, I suppose the importance of the awareness of being so inclusive and the language around it. And I suppose what's slightly frustrating is nobody's come up with any negatives to this, it's all completely positive by doing it. So why is the change so slow? I suppose is probably the biggest thing that struck me. And it's probably it motivates you, I think, another bit to do a little bit more in the ways that we can. What was new for me was probably the power of online movements was very striking. More so from the context, I suppose it wouldn't be a massive thing from a farming perspective, apart from the whole, I suppose, farmer bashing is kind of what we're experiencing in Ireland at the minute. But it's nice to hear that there's huge positives coming from that as well. And two things that inspired me the most was listening to Charlotte working with communities in Uganda and the supports that are being provided over there, and the mention of the book from Panayiotou, A Few Words for a Big Change. And again, I'm a big fan of my quotes, so that's just something that'll stick with me. Thanks.
Thank you, Ashley. Charlotte, shall we?
I think my main takeaway from this panel discussion was seeing the energy and the passion, the motivation, and the inspiration that my colleagues really provided. I'm very grateful that I was able to sit here next to them. And although we are working on very different topics and levels and so on, we see this communal, indeed, solidarity principle and similar values that we're fighting for and working on, all in our different fields. But that is something that inspires me a lot. And then concerning Victoria's point, thank you so much for making that. Indeed, this is very important, a very important point to raise. Also, in Academics for Development, we are constantly trying to go into discussion about things like white saviorism and learning more and more about this, since this topic is so important. And also inclusion and collaboration and conversation are things that we find really important, but that we are still working on. And I think the main takeaway is that we have to continue keeping working on that. So thank you so much for raising that point, Victoria.
Thank you. And Panayiotou?
So one of the takeouts from today, I think that we usually say that youth is the future, but we usually forget that the youth is also the present. And with these initiatives, and what we heard today from the panelists too, I realized that there are so many actions that are going on, and there is indeed progress, and we're on the right direction. And I would say that I took this moment to appreciate this and to celebrate these big wins that we have today. Now, I just wanted to comment before commenting to Victoria's point that we've seen a couple of times that a comment on diversity of the panel here and the fact that we are all women. Well, I have 2 points to raise. First, this highlights the fact that we have less and less men doing work on topics of diversity and inclusion. And because I was also part of the organizers and we were scouting to find the greatest people to be on this table today, we had a pool of people, of men who were invited, but unfortunately they were not available. And of course, we had it as priority, and we had it in mind to have a diversity in the discussion. But I think the point I wanted to highlight is the fact that we have less and less men doing work, and we need allies and we need men to do research and work. But that's more of a personal point that I wanted to express because I saw the comment. Now, regarding the Victoria's point, if I mentioned the work that we're doing at Girls in STEAM Academy in Cyprus, we have, yes, since the launch of the initiative, we had prioritized the minorities and the girls that have less access to such initiatives in Cyprus. That was our priority. But I don't feel that your point was directly to me or my initiative, but rather to think in a bigger scale what our nation, what Europe is doing. And I think there is indeed a great point on that, and that's how our priority should be. But I don't feel that the comment was personal, so I don't feel like I have to respond for what Girls in STEAM Academy is doing, but I see your point, and it's really important. And thank you for being brave, and you highlighted. Thank you.
Thank you, Panayiotou. Esti?
Victoria, I'm not going to say thank you. I think that we have to learn, we have to listen, and we have to see who we are here, who we are there, and who is in our classes, and also where we are speaking So I think that we have to learn so much. We have to learn how to see. And in our process, and it's true that, for example, we have only 4 minutes about speaking about a lot of things, and we have, for sure, we have forgotten many, many things. But if we are speaking about equality, if we are speaking about inclusion, we have forgotten, I think, a basic thing. So, yes, I think that we have to learn so much, we have to see, and our view and our behavior, and also our speech, and how type of people we are inviting to speak. We have to change so much, because in another way we are going to speak only white women with our speech and with our experience, but we are not giving the real situation. Now, if we are speaking about young people, and I'm going to speak about what have I seen. The thing is, like, for example, in Basque Country, what's happened in the classes of Basque Country is the reality is that immigrant children and also young people are totally discriminated. And to create, for example, now we are doing a program that is, its name is Beldurbarik, and we are creating videos, and we want to improve the participation of immigrant people. What's happened that finally you are participating because you are immigrant, not because you are a person. That's the thing that we have to change. How to create other type of relationship between them. And also when we are giving examples and we are speaking, then after I have spoken about, or before I have spoken about YouTubers, TikTokers, we have to have more examples that we are speaking about Black, about Chinese, about other types of experiences, because in another way, we are not learning, we are not seeing what is the reality. But the reality truth is that discrimination and racism discrimination, it's happened, and it's happening in our classes, and we have a real gap to engage and to create other type of mechanisms, not only against cyber violence, about other lot of things. And for last thing, I would like to take something that I smile when I have seen. It's like speaking for them and not with them. And it's true when we are creating programs, we are adults and we are creating with our perspective, but not with them. And I think it's another step that we have to do. So, not thank you, but I'm going to learn.
Thank you, Esti. Fulya.
So I answered to your question yesterday, who am I? I said I'm a curious feminist. So for my case, on my behalf, now I will keep on asking the question, where are the marginalized women in every work I carry out? I usually pay attention to this, but I will be more attentive. So that's actually my take out of your question. And for my takeaway from this conversation, actually, this struggle against gender-based violence is fought on many fronts. And before I started my research, I thought that I was going to focus on digital feminist activism, but I realized there is something going on, digital activist practices is being carried out, but when you think about the case of sexual harassment or gender-based violence, I realized that this is actually like a continuum. So from the interviews, from this panel, I realized that we have to be aware of this continuum, and there's actually a lot of work to be done on both sides, both on online and offline spaces, to create a violence-free and gender plus equal world.
Thank you so much, Fulya. And yes, I think there's so much passion and solidarity that is emanating from this table, and also so much more that we need to think about, especially in terms of walking our talk. And how to address the question of privilege in all of our works, I think is a question that's remaining with me. When we talk to men, for instance, we say sexism or heterosexism is also your problem. It's not just our problem. But do we extend that kind of thinking as we move on to racism, the North-South divide, the East-West divide, and questions have come up, the class divides that we're all engaged in. Do we see ourselves as allies, helping others with their problem of racism, classism, and so on and so forth, or do we see it as really our very real problem at this very moment? And I think both your talk, Victoria, shown me yesterday, and our conversations today, and the question really highlights the significance of looking at ourselves and incorporating that into our analysis of gender plus equality. Sure. And we might have a few moments for maybe one or two more remarks, and then we'll close.
First of all, thank you. For me, it's very emotional, and I feel very emotional about it. And the reason I raise what I raise to interrupt the thinking, I have an 18-year-old daughter who is very well traveled. I want her to feel that if she comes and sits here with me, that there's somebody looking like her who's talking about experiences which relate to her. And it's really passionate. So I feel quite emotional because I've had lots of this when I think of the older panels. So I want you as younger women to really take on what needs to happen for the younger panels, because you're the younger representation. And that's why I mentioned it, 'cause it is emotional, and I will go away thinking about it because I want it to feel that young people coming up. And you mentioned quite a lot about body and all things like that, and digital. Many young black girls struggle with their bodies because it's not white. So their bottoms, their faces, their hair, their mouths, all those types of things are part of who they are. So somewhere in your hearts, when you're thinking about what you're talking about, please consider the cultural competence of what you're doing in relation to sensitivity to young women which don't represent the privilege of sitting in this table. And I really appreciate that, because I do feel quite emotional about it. So thank you very much for the space, and thank you for inviting me yesterday.
And thank you for being here, Victoria. Inge.
Thank you. I was expecting a conversation with the audience and waiting for my turn, and now it's closing. I want to add to Victoria's comment, because I was listening, impressed by your energy and by your activism, and also thinking all the time, did we miss the opportunity to transform the awareness of structural causes of inequality? Because it's important to have passion and solidarity and so on, but there we need to have reflection as well. And I say that in all modesty, coming from the Netherlands as a former colonizing country with an enormous responsibility for getting reflecting on our past and the responsibility that we have. But any inequalities in material access to digital tools or to means to buy female hygiene products have to do with structural inequalities between former colonizing countries and countries that were actually robbed of a lot of their natural resources. So please continue doing your good work and help us to reflect upon the structural inequalities and do something about it. So what Victoria is talking about is one entry point, and the other one is the responsibility of the privilege that we have and how that links to structural inequalities. Congratulations with your good work, and let's try to make the discussion that structural. Thank you.
Thank you, Inge. And I think I actually heard structural inequality more on this panel than on the other panel. So I think they're already moving us forward in terms of our thinking around that. Any final comment anyone would like to make? Anything you would like to share? If not, we'll, I think, pass on to the closing. But before that, please let us give our wonderful roundtable participants an applause. And as we would say in Turkish, power to your hearts, to all of you. And yeah, hope to meet on other occasions when we can walk together this difficult path. Thank you all. Thank you all for your contributions.
So, it's me again. So before we invite our next speaker, we would like to say a few words for her work and experience. Elisabeth Lipgatu is head of a unit for program implementation at DG Connect of the European Commission. Some of the activities of the unit are preparation of Digital Europe program, legal in operation, design and advice, interface of the DG with executive agencies and policy feedback, coordination of evaluation for proposals, analysis and implementation of audit results, and of course dissemination and exploitation of results. Until September 2017, she was head of the unit Open and Inclusive Societies in the Innovation Union Directorate of DG Research and Innovation. And the unit dealt with social and economic research, including migration, security, employment, and social innovation. Her speech today will be on the topic of perspectives on gender and the digital age. Is Elizabeth here with us? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know, so I could wait for her. Okay, I'm so sorry. So we'll wait for Elizabeth. I have to repeat, of course. Are you having fun? Is it interesting? Yeah. Great. She's probably lost with dinosaurs. Yeah. She doesn't know where to come. Yeah.
If this is love, I'm back on board. Though I've ridden this bus before. Maybe it's more, maybe it's not. Oh, I know when we meet the wall. All I got is love and time. Oh, I'm just living by design.
Oh, in 5 minutes she will be with us. Would you like to take a short break, but come back in 5 minutes? Or it's better if we stay here? Okay, so we'll start in 5 minutes. Apologies for the delay.
But I'm hoping, rooting for you, holding, saving for you. I'm evil, can evil, you know I like to take a chance. Maybe we'll fall, maybe we'll soar. Either way, I'm getting closer to God. I'll take the loss if it comes with joy. Then I could never lose the war. Yeah. All I got is love and time. Oh, I'm just living by design. Yeah. All I got is love and time. Oh, I'm just living by design. But I'm hoping, rooting for you, holding, saving for you. I'm evil, can evil. You know I like to take a chance. All I got is love and time. I'm just living by design. All I got is love and time. I'm just living by design.
Damn, baby, what are you crying for? This ain't nothing new. I want none of your shit no more. I told you so many times I'm not gonna be blind no more. After lies that you told. Not gonna be easy. You will miss me when it's all too late. You know I want you, you never believed it. No, there is nothing. There was time and pieces into something. I gave it all, you left me broken hearted. But I wish your love never got empty. Driving a lot back to downtown, bottles of wine inside my car. See how I lose my mind. They've been telling some things about me, but they don't know what really happened, you see. Think you can help me out? Oh, I've been calling, and you've been calling too much, but I've been hanging. Oh, I've been hanging up, 'cause I met another boy named. Oops, I'm not gonna say it, 'cause I met another boy named. You're wasting my time. I've been calling your names, losing my ways. Can't figure out how to end this stupid game. But I'm over you. You think I am to blame, but you're just ashamed to let your feelings out of your brain. Now I know I'm over you. Oh, I've been calling, and you've been calling too much, but I've been hanging. Oh, I've been hanging up, 'cause I met another boy named. Oops, I'm not gonna say it, 'cause I met another boy named. You're wasting my time. You're wasting my time. You're wasting my time. I think I'm over you. Oh, I've been calling, and you've been calling too much, but I've been hanging. Oh, I've been hanging up, 'cause I met another boy named. Oops, I'm not gonna say it, 'cause I met another boy named. You're wasting my time. You're wasting my time. You're wasting my time. Now I'm over you.
And I can take it back, the things I said without regret. Now I ask myself what I was thinking, 'cause every time I look at our pictures, it looks so natural. And I wish I could turn back time, back to the days when you were mine. If I could only change your foolish ending, wouldn't be stuck with the same old memories, and you'd be by my side. I wish that I could take it back, I could take it back. I wish that I could take it back, wish that I could take it back. And I can take it back, things I did without regret. We'll never forget the time that we went dancing, talked all night, it was so romantic. Why did I escape this love? Wish I could turn back time, back to the days when you were mine. I've been reaching out to all your friends, they took your side, so here I stand, all alone again. With all regrets, can't understand the way that I was thinking, 'cause every time I look at our pictures, it looks so natural. Wish I could turn back time, back to the days when you were mine. If I could only change your foolish ending, wouldn't be stuck with the same old memories, you'd be by my side. That I could take it back, I could take it back. I wish that I could take it back, wish that I could take it back. I wish that I could take it back, I could take it back. I wish that I could take it back, wish that
I don't seem like I can go. There's something strange upon my head. There's something that is beautiful. There's something I don't comprehend. Yeah, I had goals though I was confused. No time for the changes that was consumed. Realize on the papers cause I got fused. But time's only something but he lied. And I don't mind if it's choosing to rewind. It's a way I've been feeling at times where it's that feeling that kills me inside. It's a way I've been feeling at times where it's that feeling, it's that feeling. Ain't no better life when I'm winning. Fucking on my mind when I'm losing. It's the way that I escape reality. Ain't no better life when I'm winning. Fucking on my mind when I'm losing. It's the way that I escape reality.
So, I'm sorry everyone. Hello. Okay. In the traffic jam. Yes. I'm sorry everyone. So we don't want to delay this further. Elizabeth is in traffic jam, so we can move with Nadine's final remarks. Allow us to call Nadine Zakhia, the coordinator of Gender Smart from CIRAD, for her final remarks. And in case Elizabeth is here, she can do her speech during the break. So, Nadine, please.
Thank you. Okay. It's okay. Don't worry. Okay. So the closer words. Well, first of all, thank you for this great panel we had this afternoon, where we felt the energy, the passion, and the motivation of our young invitees, and their commitment in tackling gender equality for a better world and a better society. To close this joint event, and to complement what Maria said at the opening, I will stress that this joint event, is completely in line with the fact that 2022 was declared by the European Union as the Year of Youth. So this initiative, Year of Youth, shines a light on the importance of European youth to build a better future, greener, more inclusive, and digital. We saw from the testimonies of young invitees how young students, young scientists, young professionals, women and men, can play a crucial role as ambassadors of the digital evolution into different fields. I will stress especially the field of agriculture and food. And we can see that the combination of gender equality, youth, and digital evolution is a key issue for empowering all stakeholders of agricultural and food value chains, and especially women who are key players in these value chains. And they can empower them by developing digital tools, equipments, methods, and helping decision makers and supporting and extension bodies. Well, on behalf of our two sister projects, Gender Smart and Gearing Roles, I would like really to thank all of you, the panelists, the moderators, the audience. A special thanks to the lady who is doing the visual illustration. Thank you for the great job you have done. And a special thanks to the team who was in charge of organizing this joint event. As Maria said, it was a lot of work and energy. And thank you, because I think that really we reached our target and we have a really fruitful event. And finally, as really closing words, I would say that we spent together 2 days harvesting lessons, experiences, and fruits from our two sister projects. And from now and to the future, I will say, let's continue together to grow the seeds of inclusion, as mentioned in this small gift that was offered to you this morning. Thank you very much for your participation.
Okay. There is a farewell coffee as well, so you can go to the other room. Thank you very much.
Can find the love in us. Tell me you can be the one I trust.
Mommy bad enough, I let her fly it. Keep a pistol in her glove compartment. In a tinted Rolls Royce, spilling Kush, crumb sipping gin and OJ. Seen you pull up in the Porsche, looking more free than a new divorcee. We ain't gotta go overseas, I can walk you around through the LB. I can teach you how to fly it as long as I'm the first one to ride it. Baby, when we get to soaring, flying over California, cinematic movie score. Pack your bags and get on board. We can go to places abroad, think about a getaway with the dog. We ain't even gotta leave the resort. You can roll another blaze if you want.
It's a movie, it's a pilot, got a private, help me fly it. It's a good strand, it's exotic, it's a hybrid, you should try it. It's a movie, it's a pilot, it's a private, you should fly it. Got a good strand, I supply it. It's exotic, it's a hybrid, it's a movie, it's a pilot, it's a private, you should fly it. Got a good strand, you should try it. It's exotic, it's a hybrid. Girl, I got some good news. Can I run it by you?
Mommy pilot nice enough to fly you. Comfort level stellar, baby, how you? Got so lucky when I found you. How you rep me, girl, you make me proud, bro. When we fuck, you got me screaming loud, too. What it do? Laughing at me, girl, I will allow you. Baby girl, I'm sorry, learned it from my mommy. After her, who else I'm gonna bow to? Together, look, we lit up every time we get up. Drink it to the point a nigga spit up. Ride or die together like we on some gang shit. If we was blooded, no, we crip up. Before you dish, my queen, better shut your lip up. While I talk about you, let me sip up. Mommy pilot, nice enough to fly you. Comfort level, stellar, baby, how you?
It's a movie, it's a pilot, got a private, help me fly it. It's a good strand, it's exotic, it's a hybrid, you should try it. It's a movie, it's a pilot, it's a private, you should fly it. Got a good strand, I supply it. It's exotic, it's a hybrid, it's a movie.